I'm going to head it off, and it'll be a series called My Ribdiculous Reincarnation. So that's spelled Ribdiculous, and the name is Megami. Isekai Tensei Nani ni naritai desu ka? Ore, Yuusha no Rokkotsu de. Also known as the Rib anime, because it's literally called Rokkotsu anime in Japan. So this was originally a Japanese web novel series. The author is named, his nickname is Antai, and it's a Naroke series published on Shousekan ni Naro, and later on made light adaptation, and then it became an anime series. So it is kind of like this weird isekai variant. There's like a lot of isekai lamp shading, but it's a little bit more comedic series, which I'll talk about later. There's a couple of studios throwing around the production and direction of the anime, but I would say the bulk of it goes to SOK Studios, which they've done one other series called Shinsei Gatoverse, which is I think
Wow.
some sort of weird action series, but then they land on like a planet with Gato or something like that. It's weird. I've not seen the series, but the premise does not look promising, I will say. But this is their only other series that they've actually done animation production on. So a little bit of interesting times. For this series, they've tapped on Yasufumi Soejima. Uh, yeah, Soejima Yasufumi, who has done a lot of storyboarding and unit direction, but other than I want to say one small short series, I think he hasn't done a full anime. Uh, he hasn't been a director for a full anime, so this is his first full directorial debut for a full anime series. So for this, he has gathered some of his connections from his core team is mostly from Ensemble Stars, the male 2D idol series, and a couple of places elsewhere to kind of form his project team. Most of them are pretty prolific, I would say. So it's a pretty solid team overall. The voice acting cast is pretty much a who's who list of like very prolific seiyuu, except for maybe one. You have Atsiabe, or yeah, you have Abe Atsushi as the main character. You have Namikawa Daisuke as one of the supporting. So the thing about this series is also you have two real characters that have like a lot of lines. So you'll have again Abe Atsushi doing the protagonist and Mao doing the goddess that kind of like talks to him and like sends it to different worlds and stuff like that. But everybody else is just getting like weird, like little one-off supporting roles that last like one episode. Yeah, pretty much just like one episode where they're just depicting like characters in that specific world that the protagonist gets isekai to. So you'll have Namikawa Daisuke, you'll have Hayami Sho, Seki Toshiro, Kawasumi Ayako, Taketatsu Ayana, Murasa uh, Asumi Kana, so on. So again, a lot of these people are very prolific, very you know, famous seiyuu on their own rights, but they don't get that many lines throughout the entire series, I think. Going on to the opening ending, the opening is Tensei Ganbo by Shukatsu Club. So Shukatsu Club is a five-man Japanese band based in Niigata. I would say the composition, obviously their vocals are fine, but the composition is a little bit uninspiring. But they do have this very surreal storyboarding that's similar to what they use in the anime, obviously, and kind of use the same art style. And it's decently fun to watch, although it can get a little bit weird. I don't know whether I will describe it as weird, but it looks more like a weird niche short series, an opening for like a weird niche short series, than it does for a full series. So That's sort of the feel I get from it, but it is like very surreal. The ending is called Nan desu ka by Sham. So Sham is just like a music project based upon this younger singer Leah, not Leah of that and song fame, but another Leah. And this has like pretty standard J-pop vocals, female vocals and composition. I would say the bridge is okay, but everything else is again a little bit uninspired. It's a little bit more energetic though than the average J-pop ending, so it does get plus points for me on that. For this, I would say the storyboard is also pretty whatever. It's like the same set of just like characters popping up here and there, and not much else. And the overall OST is pretty nondescript as well. I didn't find any specific tracks or anything like that where I was like, oh, this specific BGM is like pretty cool. But it's par for the course for a lot of these anime. In terms of the visuals, I think so. Again, with like the budget that they had, it is the visuals are quite interesting. What happens is that the main two characters have decent static models, but don't really get animated that much because in most of the story, in most of the episodes, they're just talking to each other all the time. They're just sitting down, and the main character is just talking to the goddess about the adventures that he had in another world. So there's not like a lot of action that they have to fill out. So that works fine for them. Most of the other stuff is sorts of these like weird, varied animation styles depicting a lot of these surreal scenes in different isekai worlds. So like sometimes you'll have say claymation like CGI. Sometimes you'll have lineless 2D visuals. Sometimes you'll have these like weird Rick and Morty style, very cartoonish designs. And while it's not full on Ufotable or Studio Orange with regards to having the Sakuga frames and all that, and there are some parts of it where I would say it does look slightly budget. I do like the more creative aspect of it, so I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't hate on the visuals too much. Is what I'm saying. So, I do give it a little bit of a thumbs up on that. Going on over to the story. So the story is just about how the protagonist dies while living his life in Japan or doing some stupid stuff in Japan. He finds himself reincarnated. And he finds himself in this sort of like I want to say nebulous multiverse area or where a goddess is telling him, hey, you can get reincarnated to another world or as a certain character in another world, but depending on how popular it is, you might have to wait 50,000 years. Like if you want to be a dashing hero with all these powers with a harem in another world, you have to wait 55,000 years. Or if you want to be a demon king, you have to wait 24,000 years or whatever. So because he doesn't want to do that, he starts just being like, hey, I'll just reincarnate as like a hero's rib or something like that. Or there's a sort of isekai gacha that the goddess makes him pull because he runs out of wacky ideas to use. And then he pulls a gacha and he ends up becoming, say, a hermit crab or something like that. And each episode is him being reincarnated into a different being, living that life in that another world, and then dying and then coming back to the goddess and telling the goddess what his adventures in another world was while being that weird thing like a rib or a hermit crab. So because he is because in that other world he is that weird thing. He is the rib within a hero, or he is a hermit crab. Very weird things happen to him. And so it's this so story is part of it is the protagonist telling this very surreal story of what happened to him in the isekai world, and the other part is obviously sort of this manzai comedy, this banter based manzai comedy happening between the protagonist who's just like, yeah, this wacky thing that happened, in another world, and the god is just being the tsukomi, right? And saying, why did that happen? Like why is that happening in that world? So that's sort of the main thing. Again, it's very episodic. Each episode again is one word, is the protagonist telling the stories of that world, and then the god is kind of rebutting, is just kind of being doing the manzai, doing the tsukomi, just retorting, being like, yeah, that sounds very stupid. So the general flow of the story that the protagonist tells in the Isekai world is interesting, I would say. Again, it is very surreal, and it's hard to digest surreal stuff at times, where you'll have, spoiler alert, you'll have stuff such as heroes growing out of, so the protagonist as the rib of a hero kind of speaks out loud by accident, and the hero hears it. He's like, I need to get rid of whatever the heck is speaking inside of me. And he rips out his ribs and throws it away. But he starts throwing away the wrong rib by accident. And then that rib grows into another hero. And then the heroes start having another fight. And then the hero rips out more ribs. And then those ribs also turn into other heroes. And it's just like, it becomes this very weird thing where um one of the heroes rips out or uses the ribs of the other hero to create infinitely more heroes and then start essentially ruling over the world. And uh, it's a very, I don't know what the author is smoking, but it's not bad per se, but it is very weird. It is a very weird thing to digest while watching it. In terms of the overall kind of manzai comedy, the bokeh kind of, the protagonist just being like, yeah, this weird thing happened, being the bokeh, and then the goddess being like, that is weird. I don't know why that happened. Like the goddess will obviously say, yeah, I don't like what, why did the extra heroes spawn out of the rib? That's weird. So the goddess saying like stuff like that. That's Komi. I would say the bokeh part, the surreal part, is okay, but the goddess is a kudere. It's specifically the whole like even tone, the low tone, the quiet kudere act, but she's saying tsukomi lines right while being the kudere. And I would say having the goddess tsukomi as a kudere for 3 or 4 episodes now, but obviously it'll be 12 episodes. It does get a little bit old, even after just one, maybe 2 episodes. I would say it gets pretty old because I think the reason for that is there are so many tsukomis that need to happen per second or per minute, just because the story is so weird. It's so surreal. It's like, for instance, episode 2, you have Hermit Crab, and then the Hermit Crab goes on to do all these isekai things, and usually isekai stuff involves heroes and monsters. So you have a Hermit Crab running around flirting with heroes and monsters, and the goddess every minute has to be like, yeah, why is a Hermit Crab in that situation, right? So because the goddess has to do so many tsukomis, because it starts becoming just like this quiet running commentary, and it loses a lot of this comedic vibe that the tsukomi has to do, right? The tsukomi has to be like, hey, that's not how it is. It kind of has to like react in a big manner, in a big kind of exaggerated manner, right? But because it's just so quiet, because the goddess is a kudere, and the goddess constantly has to do it, and it becomes this running commentary, and because it's that like quiet nature, it just becomes flat commentary. It doesn't become comedy anymore, and it kind of makes it not very fun. So I think that's a big weakness of this series, but I do like the surreal some of like the surreal nature of these isekai stories. I just think that the I feel like if the goddess was just a big, loud tsundere character that just reacted very loudly to the weird things happening in Isekai series, I think it would have been much funnier and much cuter. But I'm not a big fan of using a Kuderitsukomi for 12 episodes on end, especially when again the goddess has to tsukomi everything every 30 seconds. So it's a little bit unfortunate. Other than that, there's not much to say. Again, it's just like the same format happening over and over again. Again, I do like the weird stories that the author kind of smoked up. It got kind of smoked a little bit of, you know what, and then made up. And obviously a lot of these the lampshade slash make fun of the various isekai tropes that you find on Shousetsuka ni Naro. People having, for instance, heroes having all the girls, the protagonist or whoever getting cursed weapons or having huge, incredible powers for whatever reason. So there's a lot of lampshading with standard fantasy and isekai tropes. But while I do like some of the surreal parts of the stories, the Manzai comedy aspect is not appreciated, I would say. But that's pretty much all I have to say about my Ridiculous Adventures or Rokkotsu because there's really not much else other than that sort of structure. In terms of the Mal rating, I would say I'd give it an exact 5 because I don't hate it. I think there are some valuable parts of it, but I just don't think it goes beyond somewhat middling because there are other parts of it where it's just like, ugh, why is this here? Or not why is this here, but this could definitely receive a glow up. This part of it definitely could have done a little bit better. Again, especially the goddess part, and it just kind of makes the series drag on when you read those lines. But the overall structure I didn't mind, so I'll give it a 5 out of 10. But yeah, that's pretty much my very short review of my ridiculous adventures. My ridiculous reincarnation. I keep reading it as my ridiculous adventures, but my ridiculous reincarnation, also known as Megami. Isekai Tensei Nani Naritai desu ka? Ore, Yuusha no Rokkotsu de. Also known as the Rokkotsu anime. And again, this was originally a Shousetsu Kanidaro series, web novel series, adapted into light novel, then into the anime by headed by SOK Studio and a couple of other studios as well. And yeah, again, I think if you want to dip into it to see what it's like, sure. But would I recommend watching 12 episodes of it? Yeah, I'm not sure if I would do that. So that's pretty much my review of it.
Honestly, it's better than I thought it would be for you. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I kind of really was expecting you to just be like, nah, it's just like not even worth anything. But that's kind of nice
I
to
think
hear.
I think yeah, I think
That
it
has at least like
drags
some ridiculous.
for sure, but I think the stories that they tell in each episode of what happens in the Isekai are not terrible. I just wish the goddess was just some other sort of character. That's all. I think that would improve it by definitely at least half a point or point in my book.